In this episode of Ask a Black Belt, someone asks me, how do you calm yourself before a tournament? This is a great question because I know that all of us, we deal with anxiety in one form or another when we are about to compete. And everyone deals with these anxious or nervous feelings in different ways. When I was at school studying kinesiology and sports management at San Jose State, I learned something that really helped me as a tool for myself and for teaching my students as well as how to best perform and deal with their anxiety when competing at a tournament. So there's something known as a bell curve, where the curve is shaped like a bell, and at the top of the bell is when you're going to perform the best. That is your peak performance. And on the graph, you can move the bell one direction or the other. And one direction, going towards 0, would be like you're asleep. And then the other direction is going to 10. And 10 would be like you're so amped up, you're about to have a heart attack, you're so amped up, you're ready to go, you're jazzed. So this bell curve teaches us to try to figure out, where are we best performing? Are we best performing when we are relaxed, or are we best performing when we are pumped up? And then I had to practice many tournaments to try to realize that I perform best when I'm at or around a 4. Okay, I've done tournaments where I am pumped up at 8, 9, 10, and I've also done tournaments where I'm around a 1, 2. And, not necessarily going based upon results, but going based upon how you felt going into the tournament. How did you deal with the anxious energy and the nervousness? So I always ask my students, where do you fit in this curve when you compete? And if you don't know, that's something you're going to have to figure out. Where are you on this curve? Are you are you at your best when you are performing at an 8 or a 9, when you're pumped up, ready to go, listening to some heavy metal music? Or are you more relaxed and ready to compete when you are at a 3, when you're listening to maybe some smooth jazz or meditating? So that is one tool that I think helps a lot, mentally preparing for a tournament, right? Because the most anxious part for me, and I think for most athletes, is right before you step on the mat for your first match. What level do you need to be at? What number on that curve? Is 1 to 10. Okay, like I said, for me, I perform the best at a 4. And so what do I do to make sure that I'm at a 4 and make sure that I am going into the match calm and ready? Okay, so there's a few things that I do, right? I practice meditation on a daily basis, and I draw from that when I'm doing a tournament. Nothing else is new. I focus on my breathing, and I just try to get into a headspace of acceptance, because there's not much, we can't predict what's going to happen in the tournament. And I think what makes us the most anxious is the unknown, right? We are not know what's going to happen. Are we going to win? Are we going to lose? Are we going to tap out? Are we going to get tapped out or tap somebody else out? Are we going to lose in 10 seconds and be embarrassed, right? So I think a lot of us have to, we get anxious about the unknown, not knowing what's going to happen. So for me, what I do is I accept the unknown. And once you accept the unknown, not knowing what's going to happen, it actually becomes quite exciting, because, it's almost like a surprise. And as long as you're calm and focused and ready, you're ready for whatever surprise comes at you. Most likely the person you're going to compete against, you've never competed against before, or you've never trained with, so you don't know their style. You don't know, are they going to pull guard, or are they going to go for a takedown? You don't know if they like to pressure pass, or if they like half guard, or if they like passing the guard standing up Toriano style. So you can't predict what's going to happen, so you just have to accept the unknown and have faith and confidence that you are ready for whatever happens in that match. So I think that's one of the big, you know, principles that will help you in competition, and that is acceptance. You know, going into the match knowing that, hey, win or lose, I'm ready to just give it my all, stay 100% focused, and accept whatever gets thrown at me. And we have a lot of fear when it comes to losing, right? And these things go deep beyond our technical aspects of our jiu-jitsu, right? And that's why people talk about jiu-jitsu being so much more than just a technique, right? Because when you put yourself in a stressful situation like a tournament, a lot of these emotional feelings come up, right? Am I good enough? Am I going to be embarrassed? How are people going to look at me, right? And so, you know, these are things that I've had to deal with, and I still deal with, especially as a coach and still an active competitor. You know, how are my students going to look at me if I lose? Am I still going to be, you know, worthwhile to them? You know, and these things, it's, for me, I think of it as a practice in vulnerability, because when I put myself out there and I'm vulnerable to lose or to, you know, be quote unquote embarrassed, then I practice vulnerability, and that really helps me to show that I'm a human and get in touch with, you know, our human connection to the fact that we are all pretty much here doing the same thing, and we all share jiu-jitsu, and we all have ups and downs in our jiu-jitsu path, and sometimes that takes losing and in front of your students or in front of your friends and family. But it's, you know, it's just a tournament. It's just a match. Maybe you got your ass kicked, or maybe you just made a mistake and you lost that day because you weren't 100% focused in that moment, or you didn't notice a grip, or, you know, you weren't feeling that well. Maybe you were tired because of other activities that you were doing, or you have work and, you know, you're not a professional competitor, so you were dealing with a sore back or tired legs, or maybe you're catching a cold. So there's a lot more that goes into the tournament than and reasons why we win or lose. So I think I digress, but important things is, I think, one, figuring out where you are on that bell curve. Do you need to be pumped up, or do you need to be calm? And getting a good warm up. If you need to be at an 8, then you should be doing a warm up that's going to be more high intensity, getting your heart rate up, getting your breathing going, right? And then getting on the mat. If you're like a 4 like me, I do a very light warm up, but I make sure I activate the muscles that need to be activated, like my shoulders, my hips, my legs, and I make sure that I get a good little sweat going before I step on the mat. And like I mentioned earlier, probably the most nerve-wracking part is right before your first match, right before you step on the mat. So I practice visualization, where I imagine myself on the edge of the mat, being called out by the referee, shaking the referee's hand and shaking my opponent's hand, bowing to each other, and the referee saying combate. I visualize that a lot, because to me that is the most nerve-wracking moment. Because once you start rolling, you slap bump, and you start competing with your opponent, usually the nerves are out the window, and you're not thinking about anything else but what's going on in that moment. And that's a good reminder to ourselves to know that, hey, I'm nervous now. It's 3 hours before my match. I'm driving to the competition. I get to the competition. I'm warming up. I'm nervous. I'm anxious. But remind yourself, whenever I slap bump with my opponent and I start competing, the nerves are gone. I'm just focused on this guy trying to pass my guard, or I'm focused on my balance while I'm trying to pass, or I'm focused on trying to catch the submission, right? So it's a good reminder to say, hey, look, I'm anxious now, but I already know that when I start competing, all the nerves are going to be gone. So really, I'm dealing with this fear that doesn't exist. I was taught from someone that fear stands for false evidence appearing real, because for the most part, we're afraid and anxious and nervous about the future. And these things that we're nervous and anxious and afraid about, the majority of the time, I don't know a percentage, but I would say at least 90% or more of the time, they don't come true. They're all just kind of thoughts in our head, right? Oh, this guy has a good half guard. I'm so scared of their half guard. But then you guys slap bump, before you know it, you never have to deal with the half guard or whatever it can be. It could be jiu-jitsu or not related to jiu-jitsu. So I think that's really helped me with my visualization, to help me mentally prepare and to do many matches in my mind before I even step on the mat, so that when I step on the mat and I'm getting ready for my first match, it feels more familiar and I have less nerves. For some people, music really helps. They really enjoy to listen to some music, and I totally suggest music. Kind of gets you out of the nervous energy of the arena, right? Because we all know those that compete, there's a lot of nervous energy going around. Everyone that's competing that day is nervous, so there's a vibration in the area. So if you can put some music on to kind of escape a little bit, that really helps. And once again, I highly recommend to listen to some music that matches your number on that curve that you want to be. Like I said, I'm a 4, so when I listen to music, I listen to, believe it or not, folk music, usually Japanese folk music that's like acoustic guitar, harmonica, some soothing melodies, and it just kind of keeps me at a level state. In this last competition oddly enough, I had almost zero nerves whatsoever. I felt ready. I felt my body was a little tired, but I felt awake. I was doing my acceptance, like, hey, I'm ready for whatever comes at me. I have confidence that my training has put me in this position. I have good cardiovascular, I have good jiu-jitsu. Like, I'm just ready to get out there and do my best. And I think, the years of experience definitely helped, knowing that I need to be at a 4 on the curve, practicing visualization, practicing my meditation, practicing my breathing, making sure that I'm breathing correctly, getting good oxygen, calming my mind. I felt very zen, and listening to some good music. I might have missed something there, but I feel that those are some tools that can really help people calm themselves before a tournament or get themselves ready before a tournament. And there's really no perfect answer to this, and I think everyone kind of has to find themselves. So it takes experience. The more times you compete, the more you're gonna deal with these nerves and more you're gonna accept the nerves, right? You can't really get rid of them. You just have to notice them, notice the feeling, and sit with the feeling. Like when I feel myself anxious and I feel myself nervous and breathing gets shallow, I have to first of all be aware that it's going on. Then, okay, this is what I'm feeling. Okay, let me just take my deep breaths. Let me focus on my body, maybe do some stretching so I can get out of my mind and into my body and get ready for my match. I hope this helped. I really didn't have much of a structure going into this talk, and so you could tell by kind of going on a tangent and coming back. But our teammates are doing a tournament tomorrow, the Grappling Industries, and then there's like 8 of us that are going to compete. I'm going to go there and coach. But I hope that all of them that are competing will listen to this and try to figure out what number they are on the curve, figure out what music they need to listen to, what sort of visualization they should practice, what sort of warm-up routine they need, and what kind of principle that they should practice. Should they practice prayer? Should they practice acceptance, surrender? And just really think of the tournament as what it is. It's just a tournament. The most important things in your life are your health and, maybe your faith and your family. So those things are are much more greater than this one tournament. No matter win, lose, as long as you go out there and stay safe and have fun and learn from this experience, then it's always going to be a win.